with regard to the debt ceiling, and I'm one person who's extremely grateful for his service. I have no advice to House Republicans except one. I hope whoever the next speaker is gets rid of the motion to vacate. I think it makes the speaker's job impossible, and the American people expect us to have a functioning government. On the Senate side, we need to get as many appropriation bills passed as possible. The majority leader's indicated that's what he would like to do as well, and he'll have plenty of cooperation from us in trying to achieve as close to a regular appropriations process as we possibly can.
And at least here in the Senate, we have Senator Collins and her great work on the Senate Appropriations Committee for getting us at least in a position where we can consider appropriations bills, and that should be the #1 priority for this Congress up until the next deadline that we hit, and hopefully the one beyond that. Because honestly, if we don't get the appropriations process going here, we're just not going to get any of these bills done before the end of the year, and we're going to end up in a terrible position at the end of the year. So I hope Senator Schumer will make this the #1 priority. He's got a lot of other things he wants to do. We shouldn't be doing anything else right now but dealing with appropriations bills as they have been reported out of the Senate Appropriations Committee. We have until November the 17th. I regret the fact that we're not going to be here next week. I think the Senate ought to be in here next week working on the appropriations bills, because we have a short amount of time and a lot of work to get done. And I know everybody on our side is committed to making this process work and to seeing that we actually can make major significant headway and progress on the annual appropriations process before the next November 17th deadline. And let me just say make one observation about that too, because I think it's really important as we think about funding the government that we take a look at what's happening at our southern border. It is an absolute disaster down there. 260,000 people apprehended trying to come into the country illegally in the month of September. A new record, all-time record. Or as Senator Barrasso likes to put it, 11,000 people per day. 11,000 people per day. And this administration so far has had a blind eye and a deaf ear to the horrible circumstances that are at our southern border. There is nothing humanitarian about what's happening down there. We need to address that, and I think if the Democrats are willing to work with us, we can do that in this appropriations process as well.
Well, Joe Biden's border policy has been one train wreck after another. And the reason I say train wreck is that the number of Americans who have died from fentanyl since Joe Biden has been president equals the number of people, if you take an Amtrak train, fill it with people, crash a train, everyone dies every other day. That's the number of people in America being killed by fentanyl. And I also use the train analogy because Joe Biden should be familiar with the number on that train, because he took the train back and forth to Delaware when he was a senator for 36 years. But last week, he went to Arizona. So Joe Biden goes to Arizona, which is a border state, where the number of illegal immigrants and lethal drugs that come across every day continue to kill Americans. He didn't go to stem the flow of lethal drugs. No. He went to increase the flow of campaign dollars into his campaign accounts. But he didn't go to the border. He was so close to the border, he was closer than his regular daily train ride home to Delaware. But he didn't go. He has so little respect for the Border Patrol or the citizens of this country or the communities in which they live by the border, ignored him completely. It is disgusting. Republicans have solutions. It's the Secure the Border Act. 30 of us have co-sponsored it. It secures the border from illegal immigrants and deadly drugs. Now, you know, when a train crashes, they often say that the engineer was asleep at the switch. Well, sleepy Joe Biden, he's been asleep at the switch, and people all across America are dying by the trainloads.
I only respond when there's an emergency. Is everybody?
That's going to go up when we elect a speaker.
National Waterways
That's going to be going for a while.
Seconds hitting us differently. I'm sorry.
It's not hitting my watch. Is it hitting anybody else's watch? It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, I mean, this one went off first. Yeah, this will probably go on for another.
All right, leader, are we all right? When does it stop? That's what they're asking over there. When does it stop? On that note, I would like to say I served many years with Kevin McCarthy before he became Speaker, and he is a very good friend of mine and a wonderful public servant. It's a tough time for him, tough time for them. And for those of us who know him well, we have such great respect. And I think it's a sad day yesterday. So, Kevin, we wish you well. You've served our country well, and I know you're not finished. So basically, today I want to just echo the words of the leader and others that we need to get back to regular order on our appropriations bills. I'm an appropriation, a ranking member on the Health, Education, and Labor bill, a big bill. I want to have our imprint, our Senate imprint, our bipartisan imprint into what we think the priorities are in spending in that exceedingly important bill, as they all of them are. Susan has worked masterfully with Patty. Hopefully when we come back, we'll have the three minibus together with many amendments that they've worked out. Everybody's voice will be heard. But we averted a shutdown. We cannot run this up to November the 17th with the same intensity that we had in the past. I, for one, think it's a disservice. It's a road to nowhere. It's a misery march, and we cannot govern like this. Thank you. Is it over yet?
I thought it was just a House member pulling the fire alarm again. I wasn't sure. So we've talked a lot about the border crisis. If there should be a fire alarm pulled right now, it's the alarm that we are seeing on the southern border with some 11,000 illegal crossings happening every day in this country. Make no mistake, the crisis that we are witnessing is a direct result. There's cause and effect because of Joe Biden's failed open border policies. Look at any illegal apprehension chart. You'll see when it hit a low number right as Biden took office and how it's skyrocketed since then. He ended construction on the wall. He ended the Remain in Mexico policy. He ended Title 42. This is cause and effect. The good news is this is a solvable problem. We can come together, Republicans and Democrats, to reinstate those policies, the president reinstate those policies, and to finish building the wall. Sadly, all of our communities now in this country are paying some price, some paying a big price for that, whether you're a northern border state like Montana or a southern border state or in between. It's insanity. Veterans in New York were forced out of a nursing home to make space for illegal immigrants. Service members' hotel reservations were canceled because of migrants. They were canceled for the Army-Navy game because of migrants that had taken up space there. Even the Democrat governors are fed up. Let's hope they start calling the White House and tell them they're fed up with these policies that are causing this disaster. It is time for President Biden to wake up. Maybe he should engage his border czar, Vice President Harris, and get something done and end the nightmare on our southern border.
I would just add one thing on the border. Earlier this year, it was only Fox News that was covering this disaster at the border. Now it's being covered on CNN. So that tells you that even they couldn't ignore this catastrophe that's been going on almost since the beginning of the Biden administration.
What's your concern about trying to fund the government in 5.5 weeks if they struggle next door to have a speaker? I mean, these two things go hand in hand. They can't function without a speaker, and the imperative to get the government funded and avoid a problem in November.
Well, I think the obvious answer is we need to get a speaker, and hopefully we'll get one by next week. And I'll repeat what I said earlier, which is I think to do that job for anyone, you have to get rid of the motion to vacate, because it puts whoever the speaker is in a hammerlock of dysfunction, so potential dysfunction. So I hope whoever emerges insists on getting rid of the motion to vacate.
Alec?
Alec?
What is your strategy going forward to get funding for Ukraine?
Well, I think it's important, and I think Kevin McCarthy addressed that very well last night, and it's still a major priority. I think the majority of the members of both bodies still support it. We need some direction from the administration as to how they intend to go forward.
Leader McConnell.
Burgess?
Jim Jordan, a congressman running for speaker, says he does not support more Ukraine aid. Does that bother you? I mean, do you have a preference for a speaker?
Look, I think job one right now in the Senate is to get back on the appropriation bills, get as many finished as the majority leader will let us. And all of these other issues are not going away. They'll be dealt with in due time.
Afternoon. Now, I want to thank everyone for coming. Special thanks to Senator Murray and Senator Padilla, but particularly Senator Butler for joining us today. We are thrilled, just thrilled, delighted, feel great to have Senator Butler join us here today, but as a Senate Democrat at lunch and as a vital and active member of our caucus, we sat down. We knew each other before from Emily's List, but we sat down and talked for 45 minutes, and boy, was I impressed. Senator Butler is going to be a great senator. And before we get more to Senator Butler, I want to speak a bit about her predecessor, my dear friend who we deeply miss and love, and that is Senator Feinstein. As we all know, Dianne was such a force in the Senate. She came during the Year of the Woman, 1992, right alongside Patty Murray. Dianne's work extended far beyond the Senate floor, as she gave a voice, a platform, to women throughout the country for decades. Dianne didn't just push doors down that were closed to women. She held them open for generations of women to follow. She gave a voice, a platform, a model for women across the country who aspire roles in leadership or public service, who want to leave their own mark on the world, who want to make this country a better place for others. Today, there are 24 women serving in this chamber, and every one of them would admit they stand on Dianne's shoulders. Her impact extended far beyond the Senate floor and far beyond politics itself. And the sign of a leader is someone who dedicates the whole of their spirit for a cause greater than themselves. The sign of a hero is someone who fights for others, who endures for others, no matter what cost, no matter what the odds. And the sign of a friend is someone who stands by your side to fight the good fight on good days and on bad days, too. Dianne Feinstein was all of these and more. A friend, a hero for so many, a leader who changed the nature of the Senate and the fabric of the nation. She made America a better place. As the Senate mourns this tremendous loss, we are comforted in knowing how many mountains Dianne moved, how many lives she impacted, how many glass ceilings she shattered along the way. America is a better place because of Senator Feinstein. Today, tomorrow, many of my colleagues, Democrat and Republican alike, will go to California and mourn together and say our final goodbyes. It'll be my honor, a sad, tearful, and great honor to speak tomorrow at her memorial. Also joining us tomorrow will be her successor, the brilliant and accomplished Senator Butler. Senator Butler, standing on Senator Feinstein's shoulders, makes history of her own as the first openly LGBTQ senator of color to serve in this body. Senator Butler has dedicated her life to serving others and advocating for families, particularly women and girls, across the country. And finally, to our colleague, I know these last few days have felt like a whirlwind. I know it seems like there's a million things to do and so little time to do them. Rest assured, we're here to help you. Senator Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. I've been really lucky enough to serve with Dianne Feinstein since the start of my time here in the U.S. Senate, after we were both elected in the so-called Year of the Woman, when there were finally, after a long time, 6 of us in the United States Senate. So 24 sounds pretty great to me. We still have work to do. Senator Feinstein was truly one of a kind, and right from the very start, she really stood out to all of us here as someone who came here to be a voice for her constituents and values. And whether it was gun safety or abortion rights, she was tough as nails and ready to face down any of those guys here in the Senate. She was really a role model and set an example for all of us on how to conduct yourself and to stand strong for what you believe in. She showed America that women did belong here in the United States Senate and that our voices were needed. She was a hard worker who would never give up or stop talking to the people that she disagreed with, which is why she often made so much progress that seemed impossible. And she was someone who read every single brief and asked really tough questions to stay on top of some of the most complicated issues in foreign policy, which is exactly why when Dianne spoke, we all listened. Look, I'm not going to list all the legislative accomplishments of Senator Feinstein. There are far too many, and you've heard people talk about them. But what I think the American people should know is that Dianne did really big things. It is not easy to make a difference in Congress. And of course, no bill is the sole accomplishment of any single member. But there is no question Dianne made waves in this country, that her personal story and how she communicated what she had been through when her colleague was assassinated had a real impact. There is no question she absolutely changed the culture and the conversation around gun violence to get the assault weapons ban passed. And whether it was that or standing up to the CIA to shine a light on the inhumane use of torture, Dianne never backed down. And she made waves. She changed the conversation and the policy. I mean, Hollywood made a motion picture about her. But I don't want it to get lost that Dianne was so much more than an icon. She was a dear friend to many of us here on both sides of the aisle. She was so quick with a thoughtful gesture or a sympathetic ear, a kind word, or a generous gift, like the pictures she drew of those flowers, shared with several of us, and I'm so proud to have one hanging on my wall. That personal touch is something that made you feel seen and heard and supported when you most needed it. She was the most gracious and elegant woman. And then in the next minute on the Senate floor in a committee hearing, she'd be fiery and tough. That was Dianne. So as we start to celebrate her legacy tomorrow, I want her family and her staff and all of our constituents to know how much she was appreciated and loved, and our support is there for them now. Senator Feinstein will be deeply missed and long remembered. And today I'm so proud as we turn the page on that history that we begin another page here with Senator Butler. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to the United States Senate. We know you're going to make California proud and make your difference as well.
Thank you, Patty. Good afternoon, everybody. I want to thank Senator Schumer for inviting me to join him in honoring the legacy of, for me, a friend, a mentor, and a titan of the United States Senate, Dianne Feinstein. It's impossible to overstate the impact she's had on California and the nation. You know, for generations of Californians, she was the one that we turned to for leadership and for comfort, whether it was in times of conflict or crisis or not. Everyone recounts how she was always so prepared, so put together. You've been hearing stories over and over and over again. But I think I understand why. You know, as a first, I know the pressure we often feel of sometimes having to work twice as hard, hoping to attain half the respect when you're the first. And if you think of the many firsts that Senator Feinstein represented, the first woman to serve as mayor of San Francisco, the first woman to chair the Senate Judiciary Committee, to chair the Intelligence Committee, and the longest serving female senator in our history. That explains a lot, but she always had that toughness and that grace at the same time. I've shared stories of what it was like working for her. So whether you work for her or not, or heaven forbid you might have squared off with her, you knew all too well that she'd do what it took to win. No issue is too small, no challenge too great. From the landmark assault weapons ban to taking on her own party even to disavow torture. from fighting discrimination against LGBTQ Americans and standing up for reproductive rights, to protecting victims of trafficking and combating violence against women. The list is long. It would go on and on and on. But there's one aspect of her legacy that I particularly want to highlight for not just the American people, but particularly young Americans and young Californians. I don't think the full appreciation and recognition is there yet of what she did to help protect the iconic landscapes throughout California, from forests to deserts, utilizing the federal powers of national monument status, national parks status, to protect public lands for future generations. It's been a tremendous gift for me as I reflect on my time with her when I was on staff, calling her boss, calling her senator. I didn't want to be reprimanded. As a young elected official, calling her a mentor and calling upon her advice and counsel regularly, to one day calling her a colleague, and most importantly, a friend. Just a few days ago, Senator Feinstein made one last trip to San Francisco, her home, where people there still think she's the mayor. She'll be the forever mayor of San Francisco. But what she's left behind for myself and for our newest colleague, Senator Butler, is probably the highest standard you can think of what it means to represent California, how to serve the people of California, and how to be the best senator you can be for the sake of our country. Our hearts are with her daughter, Catherine, and her entire family. We miss her. We will continue to miss her. And now it's my honor to bring to the podium her successor, someone I'm proud to call a friend. We've only known each other since 2009, but in that time, through various positions that she has held, that I have held, we haven't just done a lot of work together on different issues, but we have developed a friendship. I know her passion, I know her strategic mind, and she is a tremendous blessing to now be serving in the United States Senate. Senator LaFonza Butler.
Good afternoon. I am just honored beyond belief to be asked by Leader Schumer today to offer some reflections on just my first whole day standing in, sitting in the seat of Senator Dianne Feinstein. As mayor, she of San Francisco, first woman mayor of San Francisco, to come into the United States Senate in the Year of the Woman, to lead all of the legislative battles that you have heard and have read over the last few days, and just here today. Senator Feinstein is an example of the gift of Emily's List. She had the courage to want to run. She worked hard to win. And when she won, she did the work to change the world. And to be able to sit in her seat, knowing that I will never be able to fill her shoes, is the honor of a lifetime. I remember when I first met Senator Feinstein, 2009, in her district office in San Francisco. She was convening stakeholders to talk about some important issues relative to immigration. And she brought us a group of community leaders and labor leaders into her district office. And the first thing that she did was not tell us what was going on in Washington. She didn't tell us the role she was playing in negotiating language or bills. She asked us how the community was feeling. And every story and every interaction that I have had with Senator Feinstein before her passing and even since has reminded me very much of her approach to the work, starting with the people of California. It's definitely the example that I intend to have learned from and want to offer my colleagues on behalf of the legacy of Senator Dianne Feinstein. Thank you, Leader Schumer, for inviting me.
Thank you. You're going to do great. She is the greatest already. Thank you, everybody. Now, my colleagues have to go, but I'm going to say a few words about what happened in the House, okay? So, we all know there's quite a bit of history being made on the other side of the Capitol as well. Unfortunately, not the good kind. Yesterday, a small band of MAGA extremists plunged Congress into pandemonium. For the first time in history, the Speaker has been removed from his position at the hands of radicals that he empowered from day one. What happened yesterday is a failure entirely of the House Republicans' own doing, a disaster years in the making, to the great detriment of Congress and to the detriment of the American people. Speakers Boehner, Ryan, and now McCarthy have all learned the same hard lesson. You cannot allow the hard right to run the House or to run the country, or you'll get chased out by that very same hard MAGA right. You cannot allow a small band of MAGA extremists, which represents just a tiny percentage of the views of the American people, to tell the overwhelming majority of Americans what to do. But, folks, Republicans' issues with MAGA extremism seeps far deeper than any single leader. MAGA extremism is a poison that the House GOP has refused to confront for years. And until the mainstream House Republicans deal with this issue, the chaos will continue. Now, I hope it's obvious. MAGA extremism is not good for the House Republican leadership, it's not good for Congress, and it's disastrous for the country. So let me say this to the next Speaker of the House, whomever that may be. Think carefully about what happened to your predecessors before trying to coddle the hard right. Each of your predecessors got burnt each time. I urge the next Speaker not to make the same mistake, not just for their own future, but for the country's. Whomever the House elects as Speaker will not be able to ignore the realities of divided government, no matter what the hard right demands. And to his credit, I will say this, Speaker McCarthy, both on shutting down the government and on default of the debt, at the end of the day realized he had to work in a bipartisan way to do what's right for America. Well, the need for bipartisanship will not change. We'll need bipartisanship to keep the government open. We'll need it to make life better for the American people, for the good of the country. I urge my Republican colleagues in the House to once and for all, accept the reality that bipartisanship is the only way out. I'll take your questions. Yes. Well, look, there's strong bipartisan majorities in both the House and Senate for aid to Ukraine. I've spoken to Leader McConnell. We're going to work together to get a big package done. And even in the House, you may remember, when Speaker McCarthy put $300 million in for Ukraine in one of the budget bills, there was a move by the hard right to take it out, and it was defeated by over 300 votes. So we have large bipartisan majorities in aid for Ukraine, and we're going to work to get that done. Yes, behind. Look, when I read the indictments, I was both disturbed, deeply disturbed, and disappointed. Senators must rise to a certain standard, and Senator Menendez's actions are way below that standard. Yes, yes.
In terms of just the amount of time that a speaker race would take and the fact that the Senate is going on recess, are you concerned that a government shutdown could be looming, especially if the House does not have a new speaker in the next couple of days?
Well, we're working very hard in the Senate to get things done. We have passed 12 bills out of committee, bipartisan appropriations bills, and now we are working to get those bipartisan bills to the floor of the Senate. Our staffs are constantly talking to one another, not just about these first 3 bills, about all of them, and we're going to work very hard to get those bills to the floor. Yes, back there. Yep. Yeah, Hakeem Jeffries. Yes.
Given your praise of Senator Butler, would you endorse her Senate run if she chooses to run?
Look, that'll be up to her whether she runs. Thank you, everybody.
You're in the minibus.